Hey everybody, Cody Menz here. I'm going to do a quick rundown of the likely tanks for the auction that's going on called Under the Hammer. This event's already started with the first day being the 113 Beijing Opera tank. I'm going to talk about each tank pretty quickly and kind of my thoughts on whether or not it's worth getting the tanks. So how it works is basically each morning, a new tank comes up. There should be 5 total tanks for this, first one being this. And you can either bid gold or free XP. There's only one free XP auction, the whole event for NA, EU, and RU. Southeast Asia has all free XP because they're not allowed to do, gold sales when it comes to the auctions. Is it worth, first getting that? Is it worth getting a tank, say like the Beijing Opera, for 18,700 gold? It's personal choice. My best, advice is everybody's going to have a different opinion on this. 18,000 gold for some for a tier 10 reward tank that you can put different crews in, and this also comes with a unique crew. It might actually be worth it. Talking about the unique crew, at least in the last crew 2.0 preview that we had, who knows what changes they're going to make to it. These were actually some of the better instructors when it comes to that. They were considered the best instructors from my understanding, so that's a perk, although I hope they get rid of that different tiered instructor. Overall though, how it works is tanks go up in the auction, as you kind of saw in that first list. You can put bids on it. Bids put in earlier are basically given priority if there's ties over bids put later in the day, and then basically right around midnight at the end of the day, bids lock in and people get the tanks, for how many are in stock. Overall, it'll update kind of with the minimum bid, competitive bid throughout the day from my understanding, and you kind of get a sense on where the competitive bid is. Usually you want to go a little bit above it because some people will kind of up their bid at the last second. Now, are any of these tanks worth it? Like I said, so the Beijing Opera comes with a special crew. We'll start with that just because I already kind of looked at it, but it's practically a carbon copy of the 113. This tank was made before they did 3D styles. Instead, they made 3D tanks where they cloned a tank, made a 3D style on it that you couldn't remove, and it was a completely different tank. That's what the 113 Beijing Opera is. Literally identical to the 113, which is a collection tank now, not in a tech tree. Basically, you're getting a heavy medium, kind of close to the Object 430U, but a little bit more reliable gun-wise on the move accuracy, stuff like that. But competitive-wise, it's not the best tank, but you're getting kind of like a heavy medium when it comes to that, even though it's listed as a heavy. So kind of knocking that tank off. The most, rumored unique tank, the newest one, would be the Object 268 version 5, and there's also going to be the AMBT. I threw up some comparisons with the most, comparable tanks, starting with the 268 version 5. This tank, I see a lot of people saying it sucks. Personally, it's actually okay. So the closest comp is actually the T110E4. I also threw the 114 SP2. I'm going to mainly focus on the E4 though. So this tank, 750 damage, tier 10 TD, pretty nice. It's actually got the best penetration out of these 3 tanks. 303 millimeters on the standard round, 395 on the premium round, which is, crazy. It's, one of the best ones out there, which is much better than both of these. The main kicker is the 5 degrees of gun depression, which sucks. Very difficult to use, even on like little uneven terrain, in general. So that's the, kind of biggest knock against this tank. Accuracy is in line with the E4, same thing with the aiming time, and DPM is practically identical. It does have lower DPM than 114 SP2, which is the tier 10 ranked reward tank for this season. However, the 114 is less alpha. Gun is actually good except for that DPM, or not DPM, gun depression, excuse me. So that's something to keep in mind. Your hull armor, Object 268 hull, practically identical. So you can bounce some lower tiers sometimes, not heat rounds, but not too great, especially if you're getting shot in the sides and rear. E4 nudges it out frontally. Turret armor, it's Russian. It's actually okay. You do have a couple of weak spots, but overall, it'll shrug off some shots. It's harder to hit the weak spots than the T110E4s though, which is nice. It's a little bit more compact. The main, plus of this tank too, along with, you know, having a turret, having a TD, you know, big FU gun, is the mobility. So it's not going to win any races against like light tanks, most medium, stuff like that. But specific power is not terrible. And it does have, you know, pretty good top speed, decent reverse speed, although worse than the 114s. Better than the E4s though. So, you know, depending on your equipment setup, this thing could actually go really freaking fast. And even just the general loadout, it's actually quicker, you know, than the E4 by a considerable margin. So it's going to be able to kind of run and gun, like get up, brawl with heavies a bit better, maybe even into some medium spots, which is kind of the, I guess, the role of this tank, considering even though it's got good camouflage, because of the height, it's pretty low to the ground. It's got no view range whatsoever. 360 is terrible at tier 10. So they kind of balance this to kind of be a, you know, somewhat mobile TD, has a turret, decent gun, you know, but you're not going to be able to see, you know, far off targets, and it's going to be pretty difficult, you know, to fight on uneven terrain. But overall, it actually seems to be pretty capable when it comes down to the tank. And that's where, you know, you do have some weak spots on the turret. Otherwise, like, most people probably aren't going to try to shoot you in the turret because it is Russian, and, you know, there's no noticeable weak spots other than that. And the 2.6 hull, obviously, you can pen it in the lower glacis, or some tanks can pen it in the upper glacis, depending on what they're shooting and how far away. But this tank, it's been in the game files forever, and they're finally releasing it, you know, via this auction, which probably is going to replace the black market, and they're going to do it a few times a year if I had to guess. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm not too, you know, comfortable with them releasing brand new tanks like this in an auction format, especially when we don't know if you're ever going to be able to get them otherwise. Not too much I can do about it, but I'm personally not a fan of this. Unless there is some plan to release them like in a scheduled format, like in the bond shop or something after the tank, after you bought like the exclusivity or whatever the hell. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to cough right now. A little under the weather. Moving on to the next, most likely going to be the most popular, is the new Tier 8 Premium American Auto Reloading Medium Tank. Yeah, the AMBT. This tank's actually really freaking good. It's actually really unique as well. As you see, the closest comparison I have to this is a Bison Tank C45, which most people probably wouldn't put two and two together. That's the closest tank to it, stat-wise. This tank, if I had to guess, is going to be the one offered for free experience. Maybe the 268 version 5 would be. But one of these two, I would guess, would be free XP. But, you know, it could be gold as well. But overall, this tank looks pretty cool. You know, when it comes down to it, it's one of the more, I guess, like modern tanks for all the tanks, 1970s. Now, this tank is a premium tank. Like, it does earn more credits. Unlike the tier 10 offerings, this one does earn more credits. Crew setup's only 4 crews, so keep that in mind. Some American mediums are larger than that. But going into the comparison, so I chose the Bison Tank. So both have auto reloading guns. This is the first American tank. So average pen, you know, a little bit lower than the Bison Tank, but it's actually not, I don't think it's that bad. The premium pen is absolutely ridiculous though. 278 is fan-freaking-tastic for mediums, you know, heavy tanks, whatever, at tier 8. Like, that's awesome. You know, compare it to the heat round on the Bison Tank. Usually heat edges out APCR a little bit. You know, it's actually a little bit less. And getting back to that, because I forgot to mention too, so the shell velocity at 1500 meters per second is actually really good, and even the base shell velocity is good as well. You'll notice here, so the reloading of one shell, practically identical except for that one round. You know, basically an extra 2 seconds if you fire all 3 rounds on your AMBT. Your reload time, you know, same 3 seconds than the Bison Tank. You have 1 less degree of gun depression. Better accuracy though, which is a very good plus. Same aiming time, same DPM. That I'm not too sure how it says the same DPM, given that this has a longer reload. I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments how, you know, how that works out. But in any event, AMBT comparable to the Bison Tank gun-wise, which, you know, for being a medium tank, it's got like a heavy, you know, kind of punch to it. Like, it's not going to be like a Progetto, you know, kind of run and gun auto reloader. Hit points, you know, okay. The main thing you have to realize with the hull, so it's really angled, so it's going to bounce the hell out of APCR, unless it hits you basically in an unangled spot. However, it's got a pretty decent angle to it when it comes to even the lower glacis to some extent, but especially the upper glacis. So it's really bouncy in that regard. However, heat's going to chew you up. And your turret front armor is actually okay thickness-wise, but you're mainly based off of angles again. And getting back to the preview, you do have a small cupola people can hit, but you know, for the most part, you're not going to be bouncing a ton of things if they're hitting you like under the shot trap. I think that's a little bit weak, or you know, higher tier like TD, premium rounds, heat especially for the AMBT, but it is actually moderately good hold down. So that's where it's kind of unique when it comes to being a tier 8 premium, just because with the auto reloader, it's not exactly like any other tank that we have. But the main thing, as I mentioned too, I just double checked on my other screen, is, you know, people are going to be able to shoot under that shot trap and basically penetrate you here. The rest of it, you know, is fairly bouncy, you know, fairly well protected unless you're getting hit by like high pen heat. You know, that's definitely going to be something that you have to be worried about. And then your cupola. Getting into the rest of the stats though, so I don't babble on too much though. Overall, you know, the mobility, it's not that great. So it's got a really good specific power. It's capped by the top speed and reverse speed. So it's actually worse than the Bison Tank in that regard. So this tank, you're going to have to use field mods, possibly even, you know, turbo equipment. And if you do that, it's actually going to make this tank play completely different if you can get that maximum top or reverse speed up. Because even though your specific power is great, as you see here, same as the Type 59G, you're really capped by that top speed, which they probably took that into regard for balancing, where, you know, even if you throw equipment on, that's kind of where the tank, you know, will kind of shine if you get a little bit more mobility out of it. Camouflage, you know, just okay. You know, when it comes down to the tank, nothing special there for its class. And V-range 380s, you know, pretty much on point. But this tank, it's going to have the unique factor. Seems like it's pretty darn good. It's definitely not going to be, I don't think it's going to be broken whatsoever, because if this tank would be broken, then the Bison Tank would be broken. Bison Tank is actually really good as a tank. The main thing with this is, you know, people shooting the premium rounds out of you are definitely you're gonna feel them, because that penetration's really Type 59G. When it comes down to this tank, you know, most people know this tank. When it comes down to just being dipped in gold, Artie's gonna focus you, and you know, ultimately you're gonna have a very fun time playing this, because people focus the hell out of you for having a gold tank that they don't have. Most people know the Type 59G stats, so you're mainly buying that for the status symbol. And then there's, last but not least, the WZ 111v5 Qilin. That tank, you know, is only offered once in the black market. The nice thing about this is it spews fire out whenever you shoot. And this 3D style looks absolutely awesome. So you're mainly buying the 5A for, again, the status symbol and the cool style and everything. You can't use it like in ranked battles, unfortunately, like they bar it from that. So that's one detractor. But overall, this tank's actually pretty cool just for playing with the special style. But you're buying basically an identical WZ 111 5A. So, you know, there's that, where you are buying a tank that you can just get in the tech tree. Overall though, hopefully you enjoyed this video. And yeah, thanks again for watching. Hopefully, you know, this kind of helps you out on deciding whether or not you should participate in the auction. Me personally, I like collecting tanks, so I would definitely recommend you to participate. But then again, some people don't want to kind of overpay something for something rare that other people don't have, or something cosmetic. But for those that are participating, you know, good luck. You know, hopefully you get something without spending too much. And yeah, I guess let me know in the comment section how you, I guess, feel about Wargaming doing this. I know the new tank's being released this way, most likely, you know, unless they switch it up and do something different. I'm not too sold on that, but you know, I know myself, I can't change that. Thanks again. Have a good one. See ya.